I'm always thinking about now, I'm obsessed with why dogs do things right and wrong, right? We talk about it all the time. Like dogs, we get them really stimulated, and when they do things, what are they aware of and what are they not aware of? Like how much of their behavior is coming because of their internal arousal state or whatever, and what behaviors get packaged with other behaviors, and they may be aware of some of them and not aware of some of the other things they're doing that are attached to them, and that really fascinates me. And she was like a quintessential example of that. Absolutely, in my mind, the most obedient dog that I've ever been around. She hates being wrong in every way, but her drive was so high that she would, in training, she would make mistakes. She would do things wrong, and I would punish her for it sometimes. And in my mind now, looking back at the time, I wasn't thinking this way, but now I think that she did not know. It wasn't a conscious, like, disobedience thing ever. She just could hit a state of arousal that was so high and so crazy that she wasn't even aware of things that we were thinking she was aware of. Right.
So
She would bite me all the time. Like now I play with it. I don't punish it in the same way now, and I try to manage energy levels and figure out other ways to come at that stuff. And then I tolerate a lot of stuff that I wouldn't tolerate early in my dog career. Like I would have said, like, you're going to do this, goddammit, whether you want to or not. And I'm not interested in that anymore. Right? I'm interested in why they do what they do more. And at the time, I was very like end goal oriented,
right,
and
right.
now I'm more process driven, for want of a better word. But I think that I would handle it differently, because I think a lot of things that I corrected her for were completely out of her control, like absolutely out of her control. Like she had no idea. She'd hit a certain level of drive, and you could do anything you want, and it was all pointless at that point. Like she had no concept of why. It just was a certain, like I think you talk to police officers or soldiers or stuff, and people are in really intense situations, highly arousing situations, and they can't remember what happened all the time. It's constant. People in war and the other things like that,
Sure.
And they interview them afterwards, and they're like, I really don't remember anything that happened detail oriented. And we work dogs in sport work all the time at really super high states of arousal, where I think sometimes that's the case. That they're like, I see that thing. All
Right.
this movement in my body, the tension in my body, whether my butt's an inch off the ground or 3 inches off the ground, if I'm
They don't know.
creeping, they don't even know they're doing it, right? And we, I think, get a false sense of what they know because of certain dogs that are wired a certain way. If you start hammering on them, they get a little suppressed, and that suppression makes them correct, but not consciously, just because we manipulated their internal energy levels. And so at that point, they're right, and we say, see, I knew it. That dog knew. That dog knew. And see, so that authorizes me to do other things that I probably shouldn't be doing. Maintain arousal levels that are productive for us without getting into unproductive arousal levels. And there are other ways we can manage those aside from pressure. And the other thing is that anybody that, like if you've been around those kinds of dogs a lot, that what worked initially to suppress them doesn't work over time. It's a temporary fix because of that. If it were truly operant, if it were really just behavior, then they should alter their behavior based on their experiences, right? So if you have a very strong bad experience and you continue to do this thing, that's the point for us to say, like, like that shouldn't be the case. Like you should, if you were truly in control of all of this, you would stop doing it if you knew what I thought you knew. And so, but we get temporary results and it comes back, and temporary results and it comes back, and we say, oh, that dog is obstinate, that dog is oppositional, the dog is all those other things. And I think there are definitely dogs that don't want to do things. Like you go, do this, and they're like, yeah, I know what you want me to do, and nah, I don't want to do it. But that's completely different than a lot of the little mistakes that we see dogs making in high states of arousal, especially around sport work, where we manipulated these states of arousal and created them, and then we're punishing the dogs for things they're unaware of. And that suppression related stuff, the thing for me is that it never lasts. It's only temporary, and it gets harder to do every time you do it, especially when you're dealing with dogs with high levels of motivation like that. So you suppress them once, and it works for a little bit. You suppress them again. It was a little harder the second time you suppressed them because they get used to it. And as you go, it gets harder and harder and harder to suppress them until you can't anymore. Not doing anything that's even remotely considered humane, and you can't suppress them. They can be untrainable, unfinishable, and whatever, uncontrollable in those circumstances. So now I'm just way more interested in that, like how different dogs manifest their energies. Are there other ways we can control that? What are they conscious of and what are they unconscious of? And how can I manipulate that? And then I'm also, I don't know, I'm just getting old, I suppose. So now I think look at things differently, and so I go I don't care as much if I win. I care more about like how this goes. I'm more interested in the puzzle than the end result. And if I'm much happier with a dog that's out of control, but I think I understand him better than a dog that's under perfect control and I don't really have a good relationship or understand him.